Thank you everyone for participating on this call. Back in March 31st, 2020, just about 6 months ago, CytoDyn announced the enrollment of its first patient in COVID-19 mild to moderate phase 2 clinical trial. On June 11th, just 2.5 months later, we completed enrollment of 86 patients in CD10 trial. The target was 75 patients. We announced that these patients were COVID-19 patients with mild to moderate symptoms. Nobody, in the best of our knowledge, had done any randomized trial in this population because to show any improvement is almost impossible since the patients get well between 3 to 7 days, if not 14 days. Amongst all the patients we enrolled, we had only 45 patients with symptom score of over 4, which means almost 30 patients were categorized as mild COVID-19 patients, with almost 10 patients or so with symptom score of 0. 0 is the best score you can get, and 12 is the worst health score. Our results had been very impressive given the size and the kind of population we were dealing with. We had a clinically significant result in patients with symptom score of 4 or higher. Keep in mind that the clinical score of 4 or higher is not mild to moderate, but perhaps only moderate population. We had a statistically significant value for NUS2 and SAE and AEs, much lower number in leronlimab arm than placebo, as we reported to everyone. Also, before this trial results came out, we had over 60 patients with emergency IND approved, and most of them did very well with leronlimab. Before I give you complete update on our plan going forward with our COVID-19 program and other programs, we have invited 4 top physicians who enrolled those 60 or so emergency INDs patients and or physicians who enrolled in our CD10 and CD12 COVID-19 trials. We want them to talk about what they think about leronlimab, and then we will proceed with our update. So we have invited 4 doctors, which are Dr. Siddhan Raju from Montefiore, and a top UCLA infectious disease doctor, Dr. Otto Yang, and Dr. Nicholas Agresti from St. Mary's Hospital in Georgia, along with Dr. Chris Reckner, to share with you their patients' experience and with leronlimab and their view of leronlimab. We are doing this to make sure you understand the thinking amongst top doctors about leronlimab. Those who know leronlimab better than anyone since they use leronlimab on their own patients. So first physician to talk about leronlimab for COVID-19 is going to be Dr. Siddhan Raju. We call Dr. Siddhan Raju our hero doctor for leronlimab, as he is the person who believed in leronlimab first and convinced the FDA to grant him the first emergency IND with leronlimab, which expedited the process of leronlimab getting into clinical trial for COVID-19. A little background about him is Dr. Siddhan Raju, medical doctor, is the medical director, advanced lung failure and lung transplant. He is recognized as an international expert in lung transplantation. Prior to joining Montefiore, Dr. Siddhan Raju was the medical director, lung transplantation in Newark, Beth Israel in New Jersey. Dr. Siddhan Raju's research has been published in high-impact medical journals. He's a member of the American Society of Transplantation, the Society of Critical Care Medicine, and the International Society of Heart and Lung Transplant. He has been twice awarded Best Attending of the Year Baylor College of Medicine Pulmonary Section. He's also a frequent lecturer and has presented at many national and international conferences. Thank you, Dr. Siddhan Raju, for accepting our invitation to address our shareholder in this crucial time of pandemic that is haunting the whole world. Could you please give us your take of leronlimab after you used it in the 11 very sick patients at Montefiore and enrolled many patients for us in CD10 and CD12? Dr. Siddhan Raju, please go ahead.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity. My name is Siddhan Raju, and I was the first one to use leronlimab in critically ill patients who did not have any other option than leronlimab at that time. As an academic center, we had all the other clinical trials going on, and these candidates were not deemed to be appropriate candidates for their clinical trials because they were so critically ill and they were deemed not candidates. In that group of patients, what I have seen is patients' initial response was they were liberated of life support initially. Number two, patients who we thought they were not going to be around in a day or two, they turned around and they continued to survive that particular episode. And more importantly, some of the patients did come off dialysis. So there is something about preservation of end organ recovery. A lot of patients have end organ failure. None of the physicians are sure that these end organ failures would actually recover to the extent that they do not need the support. For example, pulmonary failure and coming off mechanical ventilation and coming off oxygen. For another example is renal failure, coming off dialysis, and which is very difficult within the first few weeks after administration of leronlimab in severe critically ill patients. Having seen what I've seen with the patients who are critically ill, some of them are immune compromised to the extent that their CD4, CD counts were very, very low. Even in that phase, we were able to recover some patients. So that really encouraged me to embark on a pathway that was unique with leronlimab. It not only mitigates, which is stopping inflammation, but also promotes immunity to clear up the virus, and also institute mechanisms that preserve end organs, like without any pulmonary fibrosis after the infection and or renal failure, persistent renal failure after the infection. So these were my observations, and I was very eager to try in the phase 2 and the phase 3, and which we are currently enrolling in phase 2. Thank you very much, and that's all I have to say.
Thank you so much, Dr. Siddhan Raju, for all you have done for leronlimab and the patients of the world. So I want to make sure everybody also knows that Dr. Siddhan Raju is also the lead author in our manuscript for CD10 trial that just concluded, which will be submitted to publication very soon. And the manuscript is almost completed. He also will be has already submitted a manuscript for the 11 patients that he enrolled. Our second doctor was going to be the world prestige doctor at top university hospital in US, which is Dr. Otto Yang. Dr. Otto Yang wanted to participate in today's call, but unfortunately due to scheduling conflict, he could not, but assured us he will be on the next possible opportunity. Dr. Otto Yang had enrolled almost 30 patients emergency IND with leronlimab and many patients in CD10 and CD12 for CytoDyn. He's also the doctor that treated Samantha Motid, who claimed leronlimab saved her life after remdesivir and hydroxychloroquine failed saving her. He has about 30 patients in emergency IND, and his manuscript has already been submitted, as was for Dr. Siddhan Raju's manuscript. Our third doctor who is here is Dr. Nicholas Agresti. Dr. Nicholas Agresti, thank you so much for making this call. Could you please let us know about your experience with leronlimab? Dr. Agresti, please go ahead.
Thank you, Dr. Porosan. First, a little bit about me. I'm board certified in internal medicine. I also hold a liver transplant fellowship from the University of Miami, as well as a fellowship in gastroenterology and a personal interest in signal transduction. For disclosure purposes, I wanted to say that I have no financial interest in CytoDyn, nor am I receiving compensation for speaking today. The 4 patients that had remarkable recoveries in our intensive care unit may have been due to leronlimab. The phase 3 clinical trials are pending, and I'm very optimistic based on what we've seen in our patients. Our manuscript is currently being reviewed for publication. Our patients were not part of a clinical trial, and as Dr. Porosan said in the past, this drug was used under the compassionate use through the FDA. All of our patients were on mechanical ventilation, required medication to raise their blood pressure, and 2 out of the 4 patients were on hemodialysis secondary to COVID-19 infection. In our publication, we report clinical improvement in as little as 24 hours. Clinical improvement ranged from removal of mechanical ventilation, decrease in medication to maintain blood pressure, and improved oxygenation of the lungs. One of our patients that was on hemodialysis no longer needed this therapy by the time she was discharged. Our other patient that was on hemodialysis and on a ventilator for 15 days prior to dosing required intermittent hemodialysis as he clinically improved. He was one of our sicker patients, and our team actually thought that he had a 0% chance of survival. He was probably our most remarkable recovery, and he was one patient that received 1 dose of leronlimab, and his second dose of leronlimab wasn't until not 7 days later as scheduled, but 14 days later. Our cytokine profiles for 3 out of our 4 patients were consistent with decrease in IL-6 and CRP, which corresponded to dosing with leronlimab. You have to understand that our patients were critically ill. These patients were, even before COVID-19, would be patients that you would likely contact the family members and ask them to come in and pay their respects, because that patient would pass on. Until we have clinical trial results from phase 3, we're cautiously optimistic. Given the fact that all 4 patients received multiple other treatments and did not clinically improve until receiving leronlimab, gives us promise. Thank you, Dr. Porosan.
Thank you so much, Dr. Agresti. Also, I want to make sure everyone knows that Dr. Agresti has also submitted his manuscript for publication of his patient's data. Our 4th invited doctor is Dr. Chris Reckner. Dr. Chris Reckner was introduced to CytoDyn by Dr. Scott Kelly. We are very fortunate to know that Dr. Reckner has accepted our offer to join leronlimab team, as he believes in leronlimab's potential. He's a doctor who single-handedly enrolled many patients in CD10 after our enrollment was slowing down. Dr. Reckner, could you please tell us about what you think about leronlimab? Go ahead, please.
Be happy to, Nader. The CD10 trial is unique. It's unlike any of the other COVID trials we've participated in that it did have mild to moderate patients, and as you said, almost half of them were mild. Another unique feature about CD10 was that there wasn't a time limit from the initial symptoms. A lot of the studies want to look at the COVID patients that are 10 days or less. It's easier to treat, there's less viral load. What I was extremely impressed by is that leronlimab seems to work in these patients beyond the 10-day time period. Some of the patients may have had prior COVID diagnosis 4 weeks prior to the enrollment in the study. and yet they were still included in CD10 for the protocol. I think that diverse population that we see can help us guide to being able to better allocate who the phase 3 study would work with. But in clinically, there aren't very many options, if anything, for patients. And so having something to treat patients after this 10-day period of time would be fantastic. The other striking thing that I saw with leronlimab, and it's a blinded study, is that there were some groups of patients who just did not get better, even though they were moderate, some of them mild, and they kept having infection after infection, multiple problems called adverse events. And when you look back at the data, the difference in adverse events from the treated group, leronlimab, versus the placebo group was tremendous. And not only that, too, as a clinician, it's the number of events that were happening within each patient. So I see great promise for this. I see that we've learned a lot of information from CD10 by keeping the population diverse, and I look forward to further studies with it. Back to you, Nader.
Thank you so much, Dr. Reckner. So now let us talk about the update. In regards to FDA's emergency use authorization and MHRA's fast-track approval, both agencies would like to see CD12 interim results. Our CD10 gave us wealth of information that we believe can give us a very successful phase 3, namely what to select as our primary endpoint or what population size we need to give ourselves best chance of approval in a phase 3. In regards to MHRA, we are still providing them information, especially about our 60 or so emergency IND patients. MHRA has shown interest to allow leronlimab to have early access for severe and critical population if we provide them with our 60 emergency INDs patient results along with CD10 detail. In today's call, we have with us Dr. Kush Dodi, who's the clinical trial director of Amarex, and he was on the call with us with MHRA, and I would like to ask Dr. Dodi to elaborate on the meeting we had with MHRA. Dr. Dodi, please.
Thank you, Dr. Porhasan. Hi, everyone. This is Kush Dodi. So we had a meeting with MHRA on September 9th. The purpose of the meeting is to update MHRA on the clinical development of leronlimab for COVID-19 and discuss the regulatory pathway for approval of leronlimab in UK for COVID-19. We shared the results of our recently completed mild to moderate COVID population with them. MHRA has recommended that leronlimab might be a good candidate for early access to medicine scheme, or called AIMS. Under this EAMS approval, patients in UK will be allowed to have access to leronlimab prior to its full marketing authorization. As Dr. Porhasan mentioned, MHRA has recommended us to submit the data from our 60 plus patients from the emergency INDs and in combination with the data from our ongoing studies. So that submission process is already initiated. Our team has started working on it and compiling all that data to share with the MHRA with the follow-up on that meeting. Thank you, Dr. Porhasan.
Yep. Thank you so much, Dr. Dodi. So in the interest of not losing any time waiting for fast-track approval from any of the potential countries that we're working with, we are currently working with the FDA in the United States on a protocol for a phase 3 for moderate population. Patients with symptom score of 4 or higher could be categorized as moderate, with potentially 4 weekly injections, days 0, 7, 14, and 21, and readout on day 25. We believe our chances of getting a primary endpoint with 4 weekly injection or even 3 weekly injections in moderate population after our experience with mild to moderate population is excellent, and we are already set up with many sites ready to initiate this trial. And when we talk about 4 weeks later post-COVID-19 infection, then we are kind of getting to a population that is called long hauler. And there is no medication for this population. And we have some very exciting data generated that is absolutely powerful. And I will have Dr. Scott Kelly talk about long hauler and our new finding about leronlimab that we are very excited about. Dr. Kelly, could you please?
Sure, I would love to. Thank you, Nader. As you know, long haulers are people infected with COVID-19 but never fully recovered. They have lingering symptoms similar to the acute phase: fatigue, tightness in the chest, and shortness of breath. They also describe brain fog or impaired cognition. At this time, as Nader was saying, there's no treatment. I have some extremely exciting news to share with you today. Recently, we've had some information regarding leronlimab that became the tipping point in our efforts to aggressively pursue the treatment of COVID-19 long haulers. We believe this is a potential game changer for CytoDyn shareholders and patients. I want to give you a little background first about how we arrived here. I was discussing this concept of leronlimab's ability to cross the blood-brain barrier with 2 key members of our scientific board of advisors. On prior shareholder conference calls, we discussed that in certain disease states, that the blood-brain barrier can be compromised, especially with neuroinflammation. In addition, literature has shown RANTES can disrupt the blood-brain barrier. We have just learned that through a recent study in macaques and HIV that leronlimab does, in fact, cross the blood-brain barrier and has been identified in brain tissue. Even more compelling about this story is that we were seeing essentially 100% receptor occupancy by leronlimab peripherally and 70 to 75% receptor occupancy in the brain with leronlimab, 700 milligram dose, administered once weekly. This allows us to have further confidence that leronlimab will have the opportunity to be successful in various central nervous system pathologies, including HIV-associated neurocognitive disorder, multiple sclerosis, central nervous system tumors, Alzheimer's, and the recovery from stroke and traumatic brain injury. In addition, our reasoning for exploring COVID-19 long haulers is to obviously help these patients, but also we have realized there is no FDA-approved molecule for post-viral syndrome patients. It opens the opportunity to explore other post-viral syndromes similar to those caused by mononucleosis and chronic fatigue syndrome. So Dr. Chris Reckner, our new VP of Clinical Development, will give his thoughts on long haulers. Dr. Reckner was very instrumental in assisting with enrollment in our COVID-19 studies and will be an integral part of our clinical trials going forward. Chris?
Thanks, Scott. In the CD10, we were limited to 4 symptoms with the patient, and it's one we really didn't understand about COVID when it was first coming to the U.S. So we thought it was a lot of mostly pulmonary. For CD10, we were talking with patients asking if they had fever, cough, shortness of breath, or myalgia, we'd been reporting this with multiple patients that were in the CD10 trial that had this cognitive fog. They couldn't think. They were bumping into things. And these are the moderate cases. They had just extreme insomnia, a host of neurologic issues. And prior to that, some of the patients, like I had said, from the time frame that entered CD10 had symptoms for weeks. And I guess you could say they were kind of going into that long hauler phase. But in these patients, we were seeing marked changes cognitively, fatigue resolved. I think that's a game changer, and I think that opens up the door to multiple neurocognitive issues. And maybe a lot of this stuff is post-viral that we've been seeing. So, back to you.
So So thank you, Dr. Reckner and Dr. Kelly. So to summarize, we believe the fastest path for leronlimab to be approved for COVID-19 is both in CD12 and or moderate population of COVID-19, along with the long hauler population, which there are no available medication for it. And it's an excellent chance that we have, we believe. And we are still pursuing MHRA not only for COVID-19, but for HIV. Currently, we are working on all these three scenarios, and we are very confident that leronlimab role in COVID-19 will be paved very soon for our first approval. Our next update is in regards to our BLA submission to the FDA and our positive meeting with the FDA. Some shareholders have questioned whether CytoDyn has the expertise to deal with the BLA submission. So I brought Dr. Kush Dodi, who's the Director of Clinical Trial, and I will ask him to talk about what kind of meeting we had with FDA, what is his take about this. Dr. Dodi, could you please?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Porhasan. So we had a meeting with FDA on September 8th. The purpose of this meeting is to come to an agreement with the agency for the submission of efficacy data to support 700 milligram dose. And this is a big task in terms of that has never been done by an FDA before. As I mentioned in our prior discussions, that we are asking for a marketing approval for leronlimab for the indication of multi-drug class resistance population. The clinical trial, the phase 3 pivotal trial for this multi-drug class resistance population was done with 350 milligram dose. We have additionally conducted the monotherapy indication in which we have tested not only 350 but also the higher doses of 525 and 700 milligram dose. And based on the conversation with the agency in the past, we came to an agreement that the drug dose that will be approved will be 700 milligram based on supporting data from a monotherapy study. Now, the discussion we had with the agency was primarily based on the fact that FDA wants to see a data from an ongoing monotherapy study to support the efficacy, not only the safety, but also the efficacy of 700 milligram dose from the CD03. We have come to a complete agreement with the agency and the terms of what level of information that needs to be provided from our current ongoing study. All aspects of submissions were very clear, and we are on track to make a submission for BLA to FDA. So I wanted to make it clear that from our standpoint, we have a complete understanding. We have all the level of information that is needed to be submitted to agency. The aspects which was not addressed before, it is not because of the lack of expertise, it is the lack of existing available data from the 700 milligram dose from an ongoing clinical trial. That aspect is currently being addressed, as although the trial is ongoing with the 1 year follow-up, we have all patients in the 700 milligram dose have completed their treatment. So we have all available data at this point of time to make a successful submission to BLA and get a marketing approval for HIV indication. Back to you, Dr. Porhasan.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dodi. So the other update I want to give is NASH is the indication that we have green light to do phase 2. We have been working on that very diligently, and I want to have Dr. Kelly update us on that. Dr. Kelly, could you please?
Yeah, sure. So the NASH trial is moving along very well. We already have most of the sites selected, and all other startup processes will be completed by the end of this week. So we are expecting central lab kits to be ready by early to mid-October. So we plan on having the first patient injected around mid to late November. We will be announcing our first patient injection to the public. But I do want everyone to understand that we believe the market opportunity for NASH for leronlimab is tremendous. It is anticipated to be a $20 billion industry by 2025. It's estimated that 30 to 40% of adults in the United States are living with fatty liver disease, and 3 to 12% of adults in the United States are living with NASH. Based upon our mechanism of action and prior success with animal studies in this space, we believe this represents a tremendous opportunity for CytoDyn. Nader.
Thank you, Scott. So then news came out that Gilead had reached deal with Immunomedics for $21 billion. And a lot of people come out and say, wow, maybe CytoDyn leronlimab is not worth it to get a deal. People don't understand, some of the people don't understand that when you have 700 million shares outstanding and you have multiple indication and you're selling one indication through one licensing, to buy another indication and sell it for same price and not violate that, it's very, very difficult. But I want to ask Dr. Kelly take on that. He's our head of business development. Dr. Kelly, could you please elaborate on that deal that Gilead just made?
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to. So I look at this as, I think that this is extremely positive for CytoDyn shareholders and further confirms the belief that what we've been talking about in the past, which is that immunotherapy is the future of cancer treatment. And I think there's some other tremendous lessons that we can all take away from this acquisition. So let's talk a little bit about Immunomedics. So Immunomedics is a company, this is their first drug approval in 37 years. So they were almost bought for $2 billion in 2016, but this week they were bought for $21 billion by Gilead. And they've had their fair share of challenges. They've had a complete response letter from the FDA, a question of data integrity, and the list goes on and on. Then there's the question of drug side effects, neutropenia in 64% of patients, which can be life-threatening, nausea in 69%, vomiting in 49%, diarrhea in 63%. To their credit, Immunomedics has persisted despite these challenges. They just received April approval for their drug and were acquired for $21 billion. And even the CEO of Gilead said it's a bit of a pipeline and a product. And I believe that statement will resonate with CytoDyn shareholders with what we're doing. We have a basket trial for 22 solid tumors, as well as a phase 2 in triple-negative breast cancer and colon cancer. We have fast track for triple-negative breast cancer. If we show efficacy, which product would you choose? A once-a-week subcutaneous injection or an IV infusion? A product that doesn't have any strong safety signals in over 1,000 patients, or a product with known side effects. Cancer treatment is toxic, and people are looking for medications without drug interactions, limited side effects, and ease of administration. Nader.
Thank you. So very soon we're going to go to Q&A, but just before that, I want to summarize that we are looking to get approval for leronlimab in COVID-19, severe to critical this year, and hope for moderate. We are seeking approval with MHRA for COVID-19 and HIV, and the other trials that we will get into will be announced as soon as we get to those points. But I want to also talk about NASDAQ uplisting and assure everybody that we're doing everything possible because we believe in this product and we believe what it's going to do, and those who don't believe and the naysayers should perhaps look at their history of what happened with CytoDyn. Mike, could you please talk about NASDAQ uplisting?
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon. NASDAQ has just advised us that they expect to complete their review of our application sometime next week. As many of you know, we've provided 2 voluminous supplemental submissions to the exchange. Also, as many of you know who have obtained a copy of the publicly available initial listing standards for the capital market tier, there are many variables. First, amongst a few, the $4 stock price is important. The exchange is looking for a seasoning at or above $4. In the event a $3 stock price comes into play, which is another threshold. This also brings into consideration a net tangible asset test. Secondly, equity. As the listing standards indicate, we need either a positive $4 million or $5 million of positive equity at the time of uplist. We have submitted to the exchange a comprehensive set of pro forma financial statements for the next 12 months. If NASDAQ requires more equity, as we have said before, we have engaged a major investment bank who is prepared to raise more capital for us. If required, our position is we would prefer to raise capital at higher valuations. Third, we've had comments about what about the going concern exception to our clean audit opinion. Once again, the uplisting process allows for a company's outside audit firm to have a discussion on this issue with the exchange. We're relatively confident that we can address that issue as well. Finally, it is important for everyone to recognize that even if we meet all of the quantitative listing requirements, the decision to grant an uplisting is at the full discretion of the exchange. The company is hopeful, and we've worked hard to move this process forward, and we will obviously be responsive to any additional requests from the exchange.
Thank you, Mike. And again, before we go to Q&A, still I have another question for you. The company has announced that we would like the shareholders to vote on 25 million equity incentive plan. Are you guys expecting to give me 25 million shares right away, or you or the team? What is that 25 million for? Could you explain?
Sure. Let me give you a very brief overview or summarize several pages within the proxy statement that was just distributed a few weeks ago. Nader is referring to proposal number 2. Proposal number 2 put to the stockholders is seeking authorization to increase the 2012 equity incentive plan by $25 million, 25 million shares. As we reported, as of May 31, the equity incentive plan has just 1.1 million shares available. The board is recommending an increase of 25 million shares for the plan as an appropriation from the 100 million share increase in common stock authorized by the stockholders this most recent July. This proposal also includes a 1% increase per year based on the total number of shares outstanding. In order to summarize maybe in layman's terms a few of the several reasons for the increase is one, as I just noted, there's limited availability in the number of shares that we can issue to employees. Secondly, our employee base has grown to 21 employees, full-time employees thus far, and as we continue to plan and build for future success, we're going to need to hire several more employees. We also need to attract and retain management talent and provide competitive compensation packages. There are several other reasons outlined in the proxy statement.
Perfect. Thank you, Mike. So, operator, please, let's go to Q&A.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, if you would like to ask a question at this time, please press star 1 on your telephone keypad. The confirmation tone will indicate that your line is in the question queue. You may press star 2 if you would like to remove your question from the queue. For participants using speaker equipment, it may be necessary to pick up your handset before pressing the star keys. Our first question comes from the line of Blair Cohen with H.C. Wainwright. Please proceed with your question.
Hi, this is Blair on for Yi Chen. A couple questions for me. First, you mentioned that you were going to resubmit the BLA. Do you have a time frame for that?
We do not want to give a time frame at this time. Last time we gave time frame, the FDA asked for other information and we got delayed too many times. So we're going to cooperate with the FDA exactly what they want. They have given us a special condition of 30-day review to make sure everything's fine before we submit it. So we'll give that date as soon as we get it, but we want to make sure we use what FDA has offered us graciously, which is 30-day window to say, hey, what you have right now is great, go for it.
Oh, okay, great. And could you give us an update on the enrollment progress for the phase 2b/3 trial in severe or critical COVID-19 patients?
Yes, so we are over 210 patients or so as of last few days when I checked with Dr. Kushdodi, but we are now really putting a lot of effort on the interim analysis, and we are open in the UK to enroll over there. We haven't enrolled patients in UK, but once that moves forward, it'll help us quite a bit on the enrollment.
Okay, perfect. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question, please.
Thank you. The next question comes from Peter Levine of Ameriprise Financial. Please proceed with your question.
Hi, thank you for the update. Really great information. My questions also goes for Dr. Kelly. As far as the UK enrolling, do you have any more specific time frame? When will you start enrolling patients? And also, my second question that I have is regarding all the great data that you have on CD10, the great EIND, all these manuscripts. I was wondering if you can explain why the FDA, MHRA, they still want CD12 for at least an EUA. I was wondering if you can shed some light as to why they would still want that for an EUA. I can understand full marketing approval, but why an EUA they want that?
Yeah, sure. So let me talk about the UK enrollment. Dr. Dodi, are you still on?
Yes, I can actually address both the aspects. So we are in the process of site selection and contract establishing for selecting the investigators and sites in UK. So the startup process is ongoing, and we expect to start the enrollment very soon. In terms of the emergency use authorization and why both agencies wanted to know more about the CD12 is for the fact that from both agencies, the severe and critical population is the most serious issue at this point of time. So it's not about the CD10 or CD12, it's more about the fact that the marketing or the emergency use approval, they believe that it is more critical for the serious and critical population, and that's why they wanted to have more data from our ongoing study before they make a decision. So no other product at this point of time has received emergency use approval for mild or moderate COVID. So the drugs that has been used for emergency use, these are only for that severe and critical COVID population.
Thank you.
You can.
Go ahead.
Soon? Is it 5 days, 10 days?
I'm sorry, say that again.
If we're going to UK, if Dr. Kohli, if you can be any more specific with the time frame and when it's going to start enrolling, you said very soon. Is it 5 days? Is it 10 days? Can you be any more specific?
Yeah.
Let's have other people call. Hold on, Kush.
Yes,
let's have other people calling.
Yeah.
Hold on, Kush, please. Operator, let's go to the next question. We already answered 2 questions, but I'm going to elaborate real quick. CD10. I want everybody to please do this. Go to drug.com, or I believe it's drug.com or drug.gov, and read a little bit about the process of approval. It's not 5 days or 6 days or 10 days. The drug approval takes 20 years, 15 years. That's what it says. FDA.gov says that too. It takes a long time. Now, we have got CD10. We got tremendous amount of information that we needed. Dr. Kushdodi got together quite a bit of data that now helps us. We got sites introduced to leronlimab. We are trying to go to FDA with 86 patients in the toughest population. Do you know how many patients remdesivir did? About 5,000 or so, different trials. The approval process came from 1,400. Now, when we say UK enrollment is happening, please put everything in perspective of all the biotech companies, how fast they go forward. We have a powerful drug called leronlimab. We believe it will change the history of treatment. That's what we believe. And we're going to be getting approval, no matter what. That's what we believe. Because we got the data. We work on it very hard. And we show the world what the leronlimab does in monotherapy for HIV, what we're going to do for PrEP, what we're going to do for HIV cure. And all these that the leronlimab has is on our shoulder. And we don't want to raise money at the wrong level. We want to raise the money at the right level, and we have done what we have done. So with all that said, please, if you think that we are going to get approval within few days or we get enrollment in few days, that's not the right place for you to be investing your money. The right place would be perhaps other company that could have 3 times, 4 times their value within few days. But with that, let's go ahead and have the next question, please.
Thank you. Our next question comes
Operator, next question, please.
Thank you. It comes from the line of Mark Melancon, a private investor. Please proceed with your question.
Yes, ma'am. Good morning or good afternoon. I called in before about my mother passed away because of COVID, and my father got a heart attack because of COVID back in March. We're seeing a continuous cycle of him going where you take the inhalers and stuff about every 3 weeks, and after about 5 days of taking it, he's good. He's good for another 3 weeks. Then he goes back on them again. I guess you would call this, a long haulers. I've left messages on y'all's phone. I don't see where I can put him down as try to get on one of y'all's things for the long haulers. I like to get him, see if it's capable of getting him part of one of y'all's treatment plans, or to see if we can get him into something like that.
Thank you so much, Mark, for calling, and I'm so sorry to hear about your father and mother. But let me just say this: the long haulers, nobody has tried anything in that population, so we will be the first one. We will be pioneering that. Mm-hmm. But having said that, the emergency INDs were taken away. The FDA wants us to make sure we enroll the CD12. We actually agree with them. If we're going to save thousands and millions of lives, we should do it very quickly in our trial. But I'll have perhaps Dr. Scott Kelly can email you if you email us and explain more in detail. But with that, let's go to the next question. Yes. Thank you for your call.
Yeah, just email me directly and I'll get you taken care of, okay?
Perfect. Next question, please.
Our next question comes from Blake LaFarme from a private investor. Please proceed with your question.
Yes. Hi, gentlemen. Thank you for taking my questions. I only have 2, and I'll be succinct. Nader, you had mentioned that the FDA and MHRA were waiting on the CD12 or the CD12 interim in order to pass judgment on the CD10. But you also mentioned that you were working with the FDA on a protocol for a phase 3 for just moderate. And I'm wondering, will CytoDyn potentially gain an EUA for moderate with just the results of the CD12 interim, or will there be a required phase 3 of just moderate? My second question is very simple, is I'm wondering whether or not the discussions regarding the combo HIV BLA included any information from the FDA regarding their willingness to look at the mono indication at the same time. Thank you, and I'll listen to the answers.
Thank you. Great question. Both questions are fantastic. So let's talk about FDA and CD12. We just said that they want to see those results. We did not submit a formal letter to FDA saying we want to get the emergency use authorization. We asked them for their opinion, and they were not positive about it. And their reasoning made a lot of sense to us. They want us to, if we're going to go for this huge population that gets better, they want to get us to at least moderate. They said your drug is has been best qualified for, in you guys' mind, which is CytoDyn mind, for severe and critical. So let's see that. You get approval for one indication, all other ones open up. If the doctors want to use it for some reason, then they can pursue those paths legally, make sure it's right. So the FDA, I'm very optimistic that our moderate phase 3 could do very well, but I'm not optimistic at all about getting emergency use authorization from FDA. Now, in regards to MHRA, they also were saying that the same thing as FDA. Same kind of talk about the CD10 is for these mild to moderate patients who are they're not in danger. So but added saying that we're very interested in your emergency use INDs that you have received. Can you send us those data? We have to send them the report. Dr. Kushdori is working on it. So with that said, we are following with MHRA to get early access. That would give us a lot of use of our product over there and let people see how it does for them when they are in critical severe. So that's our plan. But we are also going to be definitely filing the phase 3 with MHRA because we don't think we're going to get fast track approval for mild to moderate either for MHRA. Now, in regards to BLA monotherapy, that's a fantastic question. Do we want to ask FDA to give us monotherapy and combination approval? We could, but I can tell you the answer probably going to be no. Monotherapy has to have another phase 3 trial. Has that changed? They told us that 2-3 years ago. Has that changed? I don't think so. But let's focus on the most important thing. Does leronlimab have a chance to get approval? And if it does, what does that mean to everybody? All these indications that Dr. Scott Kelly just said, we saw the data from animal data, that it crossed blood-brain barrier. I got to tell you guys something, and I wasn't supposed to, but I'm going to. My mother-in-law has been on this product since November, when the doctors told him that she's not going to make it. She's still alive, but she's not doing very well. She had a stroke, and we went to doctor with ambulance. And the doctor said, I'm sorry, but she has a stroke, half of her body is paralyzed, she's not going to improve in any way, shape, or form because of her condition in cancer. But her tumors are stable. They checked it right away, they said stable. But then we had all this literature from Dr. Scott Kelly sent to us saying that leronlimab affects stroke because it crossed blood-brain barrier. This is before we knew this data. And my mother-in-law the next day walked. We videoed that, and I'm going to show that. It's anecdotal. It's one patient. Doesn't mean anything, but it means a lot to me. So I just want to make sure that everybody knows leronlimab is here to stay and get approval, in my opinion. And we are going to do everything right by the company as much as we can. But we are limited. We're a little CytoDyn. And we are going to do everything right and be visible with everybody. So you know what we're doing. But with that said, let's go to the next question, please.
Thank you. Our next question comes from the line of Rob Polioid with Private Investor. Please proceed with your question.
Nader, thank you so much for everything you do and your passion. I feel like we're kind of in a big fight against a whole lot of people. And I guess it's probably more of a statement than a question, hopefully to the group that's hearing us right now. And what can we do to try to get the news out and to get the passion out, and then potentially get to a Dave Portnoy of Barstool Sports, or maybe getting a pro athlete or somebody to be a spokesperson and really help to try to get the message out from a PR perspective, because I think as investors, we believe wholeheartedly in this, and it's a fight every day when you hear the trash and the fake news that everybody's coming against you with. You know, as you work hard every day and they try to take you down, you know, what could we do, or what would be a great way to really push the news out there that's positive and the truth?
No, I appreciate that. That's very kind of you. I really appreciate it. But let me tell you my take. Getting a sports person or a celebrity to take this product, we're way past that point. FDA is an absolutely powerful agency, and they are very good with us. I don't have any pushback on that regard. And I'm not saying that because we need FDA. I'm telling you because it's truth. I have values that I believe I should tell the truth no matter what. So FDA is doing everything else. They gave us a approval path with combination therapy when we didn't have 300 patients from that population. They gave us a path, but that path, they're figuring it out. So HIV is now getting to the right point. We work very hard and we're almost there. Now, monotherapy, we're going to ask for approval for that too, but in regards to both of these indications in UK, we have a powerful situation. In regards to COVID-19, that's our low-hanging fruit for everybody. They want to know, do we get approval? Tomorrow, I know a bunch of these short sellers, liars, master of distortion, so-called reporters, they're going to come and say, oh, they don't have this, they don't have that. Compare us to remdesivir. 7 infusion or 5 infusion they have to take every day, and compare our serious adverse events. Are these false? So the best thing the shareholders can do is focus on the fundamentals. We're not lying to you when we say the safety of this product is so much better than remdesivir, hands down. And then when it comes to stock price, be fair to yourself. If you blink the wrong way, you could be very sorry in your investment. And if you are very much close to the fundamental, you could harvest quite a bit. Do we have all these products that are these indications? Are we telling you things that are correct? Verify those things by looking at what we say FDA is saying to us. FDA is telling us right now, mild to moderate is not going to get emergency use acceptance. That's their opinion. They recommend for us not to file for that, which we haven't filed officially yet. But then they're giving us, they're talking to us for phase 3 moderate, and they want to see the CD12 results. They're not going to hold this back if CD12 results, interim analysis just hits the ball out of the court. And I don't know if it would hit the ball out of the court, because if it's very good, but then we have to finish the trial, that takes a little bit more time. But what are we talking about? Years and years and years, or are we talking about just get the job done? We came long way together, my dear shareholders, and there is no way this product is going to get stuck, in my opinion, because FDA doesn't want to do this or that. FDA wants to do the right thing. MHRA wants to do the right thing. I'm very convinced. I'm very happy to go forward. So with that, please, let's go to the next call.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Robert Deck with Pinnacle Investments. Please proceed with your question.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. Thank you for taking my question. I am very excited about the fact that we're going to be able to save so many lives. When you hear about the 200,000 almost in the United States, it's devastating. And HIV, so my question though is not about the science or really the drug. I've already submitted that I'm for all of the questions on the proxy statement, but the $25 million compensation, is that if I understand it correctly, you've got about 520 million shares outstanding, and you're authorized for 700 million. Are we authorizing an additional 25 million, or is this part of the shares that are not outstanding as of yet? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. We'll go to the next question, but let's answer that first. So Mike, elaborate on that very quickly. We are running out of time.
In July, the shareholders approved a 100 million share increase in the total authorization. What the board is recommending to the stockholders in the vote on prop number 2 is to allocate 25 million out of that 100 million over towards the equity incentive plan. That's all.
Thank you.
Not a further increase.
Appreciate it. So last call, please. Last question.
Thank you. Our final question comes from the line of Michael Flores with David Baird, LLC. Please proceed with your question.
Yeah, hey, how you guys doing? My question is fairly simple. When a couple conference calls ago, we had spoken about Big Pharma approaching us and making advances, and that they were pretty much not denied outright. Being that we're closer to a potential gain and a potential approval for so many differences, would that be pursued again? Is that something that we would look into, much like how you guys were talking about IMU and their venture?
Thank you for your question. We are going forward with all of those people who are interested inside the United States and outside. However, the problem here, everybody should know that when you have a product with multiple indications, each indication could have different price, perhaps based upon what the Big Pharma wants for that indication. but you can't sell the product at one price with HIV, which we already signed the licensing agreement, and that price will come through for Viera Pharmaceuticals. So when you have that kind of deal already, it's very difficult to be able to sell each one. It's not attractive to sell each one. So what we are planning is for success. We're going to go straight forward, get our approval, our first approval, and if there is interest, they have to buy the whole thing. And if they want to buy the whole thing, they're going to have to write a lot bigger check than $21 billion that they just paid, perhaps Gilead paid. So with that, I want to thank everybody. Let me just give final comments, and we have to end the call. I want to thank all the shareholders that have been so patient with us, and I encourage everybody to look at what we say and do not let the naysayers trick you to accept, oh my God, maybe there is no leronlimab or there is no indication. Put your trust on fundamentals. Put your trust on all the information that we put out there. Those information are always checked by the legal team, by the regulatory team, and everything that you can think about, it goes through that, and Mike Mahana has to check out maybe 20 boxes before a press release can go out. So put your trust on those, and if you see that's a good investment for you, then that would be us. Now, with that said, the future of COVID-19 for leronlimab, in my opinion, is very bright. The future of HIV, and now we have opened the door to many different indications because of the blood-brain barrier crossing. So with all that, please feel free to send us questions if you have via email, and we will do our best to get to it. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it. Goodbye.